Hi, Kathleen.
Matt.
Isabel's gonna join a second. She'll be leading this. So you'll see me my camera off, but I'll be listening. So she'll be leading.
Okay, yeah, I'm in a small box up here. I would assume once everybody's here, it's
Yep,
all cool.
exactly. Thank you so much for doing this. We
Yeah, no, no, no,
we're
sure. I would
excited.
love a clean copy afterwards. I know you guys are
Yeah.
putting it on YouTube, so yeah, if that's possible at all, that'd be cool.
Yep. We'll download it, share with you, and then we'll upload one to YouTube as well.
Okay, cool,
But
cool.
all right, Isabel will join in a second, so I'll be
Okay,
listening.
okay.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi, how are
hi,
you doing?
Kathleen, how you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Are you the Williams person?
I am Middlebury.
Oh, you're the
No,
Middlebury. Oh, thank God. Good for you.
never do Williams. Then
Who
no,
would,
just kidding.
who would ever, who would ever?
Yeah, you are Amherst, I assume then.
I know there's no H, man. There's no H in the Amherst tag. You got, come on, come on.
Am wait. So then
It's
how
just Amherst.
Amherst? Oh,
Amherst.
Amherst. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I never knew that.
Yeah. Well, now you go. There you go. You know something. Hi, Isabella. Oh, she's muted. You're muted or something. And I see,
Can you
like,
hear me?
now I can, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so am I in a view with speaker? Is there a way to keep everybody? Is there a way to keep everybody on the screen here? So right now I have tiny boxes up front and you're giant.
Oh,
I'm
if you
looking,
go to view in the upper right corner, you can hit
yeah.
gallery instead of
Ah,
speaker.
perfect. There you go. Done, 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 done. Hi, Marisol.
Guys,
How are you?
good. How are you?
Hello.
Good.
Right.
Marisol, you didn't go to Williams.
No, I went to Wesleyan.
James, you went to Williams.
Uh,
He's still muted. James?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. James, just FYI, as like a communications person, your light on top
Yeah.
like has a white thing like right down the middle of your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, in case you want to fidget and move around.
I know I
Oh,
can't move that light, but yeah,
that's better. No, that's better. We can look at all your sneakers now too, so that's cool.
Yes.
yeah, my desk is not the most well kept.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, you went to Williams, so you know.
No, great to meet everyone. Love
Hi.
meeting tech people.
yeah.
Kathleen, where did you go? Did you go to Amherst?
I went to Amherst, yep. Yep. You went to Wesleyan.
I went to Wesleyan.
Went to
And
Middlebury.
Hi Hig, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm a
And we're
Middlebury guy.
Middlebury. Great.
Yeah.
I love the
Nice.
representation we have here.
Yeah, I guess we're like almost what, 2/3 of NESCAC represented here.
I think so. And hi, Isabella.
Hi,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too. So I was thinking we'd give it like maybe until 5:05, let a couple of more people join, and then we'll start away.
Sure.
Perfect.
Isabella, your questions are way too smart. Just saying. So if I just nap over here, I will let everybody else
Oh my gosh.
carry the torch.
Okay.
Isabella, where'd you go to school? We should ask.
I went to Trinity.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Perfect. And where are you guys all based now? Are you in New York City or?
I'm in New York.
Nice.
I live in Connecticut, but I'm based in New York.
Great.
How about you guys?
I'm in LA.
Oh,
That's really nice. At least you have the warm weather. It's getting freezing over here on the East Coast.
So bad.
I know.
James, where are you? It looks like it's still light out where you are. Where are you?
I'm in Chicago,
Oh, okay.
which
Oh, nice.
yeah, it'll be dark in about 20 minutes here soon.
All right. maybe I think we have a good amount joined. Do you want to get started?
Sure.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna give like an introduction and then introduce you and then give you guys the floor to kind of take over and give your own introductions. So, all right. So, hi everyone. I wanted to first say thank you all for being here with us today. This is a panel that the NESCAC Sports Business Group has been looking forward to for quite some time. As a heads up to everyone, this panel is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube and shared to all attendees to watch back later if you'd like. So with that, to give a brief introduction of myself, my name is Isabella Hartman, Trinity class of 23. I played tennis, #1 singles and doubles for Trinity before earning my sports business master's at NYU. This led to my current role as an account coordinator for SPORTFIVE. So for those attending our panel for the first time, I wanted to give a brief introduction to who we are. So the NESCAC Sports Business Group was founded to create a space where current students can connect with alumni who have successfully forged their paths in the sports business industry. We want to show you that this career is not only exciting, but very attainable as well. So beyond networking, we created these panels to discuss what's happening in sports right now. So the trends, where the needle's moving, and the conversations we believe people should be having. And that brings us to today's topic, which is power and play, the business of women's sports. So why this topic and why now? Because we're witnessing something extraordinary. Women's sports are no longer on the sidelines. They're breaking records, filling arenas, and reshaping the business of sports. From Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA to record-breaking attendance across women's college basketball, soccer, and professional leagues, the momentum is undeniable. This isn't just a cultural moment, it's a massive business opportunity, and the people on this panel are at the forefront of making it happen. So the panelists today, I'm just going to introduce, is Hig Roberts, who's a sports agent at Wasserman, who went to Middlebury. Then we have Kathleen Murphy, founder and CEO of Murphy Media Partners, who went to Amherst. James Wang, VP of Athlete Marketing at Priority Sports and Entertainment, who went to Williams. And Marysol Castro, an on-air host at Nexstar Media Group, who went to Wesleyan. So rather than me going to depth about their accomplishments, I'm going to pass it over to them so they can share more about their career paths from their NESCAC schools and how they're currently involved in sports as a whole and women's sports as well. So does anyone want to start first?
I'll go first. Hi, everyone. First of all, Isabella, thank you for moderating this, and thank you to my fellow panelists. It's always fantastic. I'm loath to say that I have not been as active as an alumnus as I would like to be, so this somehow brings me closer to my Wesleyan roots. I'm Wesleyan class of 1996. I sadly was cut from the volleyball team, but that happened to be the best thing that could ever happen to me because I ended up playing rugby. I played rugby for 15 years. I ended up playing for the national team. I played for a New York club, and it really helped shape and define so much of everything I did after that. I'm a broadcast journalist, have been for 25 years. And yes, I host a television show here in New York City 5 days a week, but that just is my W-2. What really drives me is my other job, which is I am the PA announcer for the New York Mets. I'm the first female PA announcer for the Mets, and I'm the first Latina PA announcer for Major League Baseball. My other side hustle, which is mostly my primary hustle, is the founder of Leadoff Media. It is a media company I founded with a focus and an emphasis on women and sports. That's my spiel. I am also the mother of 2 boys, 19 and 16. One of them plays lacrosse at Emerson, and one is a wrestler, and he is a junior in high school. That's it. That's all I got. Kathleen, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Okay, I will start with to share something with my beloved Division III athletes here which is what my coach shared with me a long time ago. You know why we all play Division III athletics? Because there's no Division IV. I am a proud graduate of Amherst. I'm not going to tell you what year. I was one of the early classes of women to go all the way through, so played a whole bunch of sports. Was on air for ESPN and ABC, Lifetime Oxygen for a long time, and live unscripted in sports. Marysol and I have a little bit of that in common. Then took all of that experience, got into business development, around the pandemic, I missed sort of working in sports. I became the executive director of the Women's Executive Network, which was a group of about 30 women, some in the top of their game in the business of sports in the United States. And then also got a little frustrated with some of the conversation, which I hope we'll get into around women's sports, which is all it needs is money. All it needs is media rights. All it needs is fill in the blank. And I really think it's a little more nuanced than that. So put together the Business of Women's Sports event last year with Julie Haddon from the NWSL, Hilary Mandel from IMG, Danielle Brown from Hulu, and Disney advertising. Those women who have years and years and years in the business of women's sports to kind of see what they thought. So I now consult now in the area of sports and women's sports both. I think that's, as Marysol will say, that's pretty much what I got.
I can go next.
James.
So a little bit different path here. I grew up in Sydney, Australia. I played basketball at Williams, graduated in 2012. Post-college, I spent my first 4 years out of college playing professional basketball overseas in China and Taiwan. Got back to America and was just trying to figure it out. It was fortunate that a job in athlete marketing representation just presented itself at WME in New York. And as all kind of NESCAC people do, we're really good at networking. And so I networked my way into that interview room, and that's how I got my start. I was at WME for 2 years until the pandemic. And then, this job opened up, obviously my background being in basketball and, priority sports, having kind of, 40 years of presence, a really large presence in the sport, made it extremely appealing. As far as kind of our role in women's sports, we have just newly created a women's sports division. Right now it's just basketball. And we have grown it from, I think we started 2024 with 3 women's clients to this year we're at, I believe, 11. Right now they're all in the college space in the NIL world, but our hope is to, as these girls continue to move up and graduate, that we will hopefully have a full-fledged WNBA agency here. So yeah, that's what I got. I guess my day-to-day role is just trying to find as much value for our entire client roster. And obviously we can dig into what the landscape looks like for women these days. But a big reason why last year we felt like it was the right time to start a women's division was because, of course, it's the new frontier. It's it's an incredible kind of revenue driving space for us. So I'm passing along to Hig.
Great. I will finish us off. Really fun to have you guys. Thank you so much, Isabella, for this. And great to connect with the NESCAC community. Always a favorite. My name is Hig Roberts. I graduated Middlebury in 2014. I was on the alpine ski team at Middlebury, which I don't know if we have any Middlebury alums on this call, but the Snow Bowl, big sort of ski school. When I was a senior, I actually made the national ski team, which put me in line to compete for a spot on the Olympics, compete at the World Cup circuit, which is, the top 60 in the world or so skiers. I did that for much longer than I thought I ever would. Was a total surprise to make that jump after NCAA, and competed until 2019, midway through 2019. Was named an alternate in the 2018 games. And post-retirement went into like a lot of us econ majors at NESCAC, went into investment banking for a couple of years. Mostly, as an Olympic athlete, you're not generating a lot of revenue, so I had some bills to pay. But got a lot of good experience there, and was working in the renewable energy space, which was a very sort of new, green sort of idea generations, which was incredible. But ultimately, COVID happened. I got back into sports, moved to Los Angeles, was presented an opportunity to join Wasserman, which is the second largest sports agency in the world. We have about 3,000 athletes under representation in every sport you can imagine. And I would say, in terms of our women's representation, we are by far the leaders in that. Really, sort of the founders of putting monetization models and structures behind not just women athletes individually, but also helping consult and build women's sports leagues, ownership groups, sponsors, brands, consulting. A lot of sort of the units now going into women's sports. The team at Wasserman has really been foundational in shaping. I've also got my MBA. I went to University of Pennsylvania, Wharton. And that was an incredible opportunity to learn a lot about marketing and the things I do on a day-to-day basis. Highly recommend business school for people interested. We can talk about that. And yeah, I have, my interest with women's sports. Obviously, I saw the opportunity pretty quickly as a skier and some of the Olympic athletes I've run into along the way. And then I think for a lot of personal reasons, when I joined Wasserman, just really fell in love with the idea of this space being one that has been overlooked for too long. There's obviously opportunity in it, but some of the people working in it across the board are some of the best I've met in all the sports industry. So that's been really fulfilling. And yeah, I've gone on to represent some incredible female athletes who I can talk about. And yeah, good to be here.
That's really awesome. Thank you guys for all sharing. I would say one of my favorite parts about the panels is hearing everyone's background, because it's always so interesting how everyone has forged their path and found their way to where they are. So thank you for that. So I just wanted to preface before we get into our questions here is that I want this to be very open dialogue. If you guys want to build off of each other or, take the conversation in another route, please feel free to do so. This is a very open floor. And as well, for all of the viewers, if you guys have questions, please feel free to write it down in the chat. And when we get to our Q&A portion at the end, we will get to all of them. So with that, we're going to go into the first section, which is about industry growth and momentum. So as we've been kind of talking about already and hearing, is that women's sports are experiencing record-breaking growth. So what do you see as the biggest drivers behind this surge? And is it the athletes themselves, media investments, fan culture, or something else entirely?
Oh, sorry, I saw the little light going up. Yeah, I guess I could start. I think for me, it's I think broadly speaking, and I mean, I don't know if there's the right answer to this fully, but if I can put sort of like an econ brain on it and kind of put the pieces together, I continue to see this as like a market correction. So like it's decades in a sort of legacy of just mispricing allocation among commercial partners, salaries for athletes, the media, obviously partnerships, all of this is just sort of not been priced correctly, not only because there hasn't been a lot of like legacy data on this, and the comps are with men's teams and leagues, which is totally okay in some formats and not in others. But I think really like this surge is really being driven from the realization of there's basically arbitrage here. Like the value of these athletes in these sports is so much higher than what they've been historically paid and been compensated for. Again, that doesn't make it necessarily fixed overnight, because even when people are rushing to it, brands or these leagues are being started and opportunities are being brought, it still requires the right mechanisms to price it accordingly and to maximize this all, which is, I think, an exciting opportunity that everyone on this panel is focused on being a part of, sort of getting this right and making this sort of that jump up to the next level as strong as it can be.
I would jump in here kind of with a yes and a yes and a but. to all of that. I think it's a lot of those things, Isabel. It's a little bit of everything. As I said, it's not that simple. It's not that women's sports just needs money. It just needs media rights. It just needs this. Obviously, stories are broken through. Caitlin Collins has broken through. Women have been historically better at using these phones to tell stories because they've had to, right? They've had to use social media. They don't have the media rights. But I think it has to be data driven. And I think brands are finding out that fans of women's sports are a different animal than fans of men's sports. Not in every way, but some. Women are better storytellers. The money has seen that there are opportunities here. Now, are they huge? Is it, I'm not quite sure I would agree that the athletes are undervalued. I think that value is still being figured out in some manner, shape, or form. Right. I've never met anybody that's made a lot of money or has any money that wants to give it away, right? That wants to lose it. Obviously, they have choices about where they put it. But there are some people putting money in, a lot of women, especially interesting. Willow Bay, you've got Karen Nortman, you've got some female, Michelle Kang, that are putting significant money behind women's teams. That is their choice. They've also put money into men's sports as well. But I think the challenge is now women's sports still needs to be very, very data driven, so that we stay sort of close to the bone and don't kind of run around with, again, the simplistic stories of it just needs this, it just needs that.
I think just to add, I mean, as an athlete marketer, I guess what I've learned is what sells the best are stories. I think, Kathleen alluded to Caitlin Clark's story breaking through, but I think
Did I call her Caitlin Collins? I've been watching, I watch too much CNN.
We know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Another breakthrough
I'm in media
star.
on all day long, so yeah, whatever. Okay. Thanks, James.
And yeah, I would say it's provided generally just a new storytelling avenue, right? I think women's individual sports, if you think tennis, golf, Olympic sports, those guys have always had a ton of attention and it caps because it's just easier to kind of tell those individual stories when they're winning, and I think the team sports are just kind of catching up to that. I think there's always been an interest in female athletes just based on the success of the Serenas, the Allison Felixes of the world, right? The Sydney McLaughlins, the list goes on, right? And it's just kind of starting to transfer over onto the team side because there are these compelling stories that you can tell. And I think on the men's side, in a way, like those stories have been told time and time again, right? The kid that was undersized that miraculously grew 10 inches, right? That's been told over and over again. The kid that grew up poor, didn't have much, and grinded his way through, the story of a legacy kid. You're the son of an NBA player. All those stories have been kind of recycled over and over again. That it's, I don't know, in a way, I guess a little redundant, a little boring. I don't know. But yeah, to me, it's new storytelling angles. It's new ways, and from a brand perspective, just new ways to kind of integrate. You see a lot of, brands that cater to women that haven't played in sports at all coming in because they're finding these new angles to, be able to leverage.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, because I know we have other topics, is that I can't help but think back to the 96ers, the US women's soccer team. I just graduated from Wesleyan and I just thought, oh my God, this is the moment, finally. And then it died. And then no one cared about women's sports. And then I think it did take some individual sports. Serena did for tennis, Serena and Venus did for tennis, what Tiger did for golf. It made all of these sports sexy, but it took the fandom to sort of push for it. And I've seen it sort of ebb and flow and ebb and flow. And I think from an anthropological, sorry, I went to Wesleyan, but from an anthropological standpoint, right? Like the world is more densely populated. There are more women. There are more people coming up with more access to information. And viewers and fans are very savvy. They're not stupid. And I battle with this every day as someone who hosts a television show. They want to be included in the conversation. So getting to the storytelling, right? They don't want to feel like they're being spoken to, but they want to feel like, okay, they've peeled back the curtain and now I see this is the prep work. So James, I'll push back on you a little bit. I think those stories about those kids coming from the hood who, were raised by a single mom or all this other stuff, that is a story as old as time. And it will still resonate with brands that want to attach themselves to a rising star. I think that, as more people more women enter the C-suite and more women understand the valuation, not just of the sport, individual or otherwise, but of the fan and looking at it holistically, because I love the Liberty. You go to a Liberty game, you are bombarded with merchandise on the train right over. You're watching their social media feeds, how they got ready. You get there, you see the tunnel walk. You are bombarded with every possible way to spend money, either on individual players or for the team or for the league. And I think that is what has really sort of snowballed really quickly. And the brands are starting to figure that out. So I'm hoping that this lasts. I started off with the 96ers, and then in the 2000s, it was kind of like, is this happening? I almost wore it. I still have the original W t-shirt that looks nothing like the WNBA t-shirt that exists now that's orange. So I'm hoping that the momentum that we see now and that we've seen in the past 2 years really builds upon that, like the other sports catch up, because right now the W is the arbiter, but there's women's professional baseball, there's women's professional rugby. I'm following a team of female wrestlers who are, in the NCAA. So I think the W has really been a huge catalyst that's been sort of in our face. Women's soccer has been doing it for years. And I hope all the other leagues and other teams ride that same wave so that it doesn't just plateau or, drop off or plateau.
Yeah. Isabella, if you mind, since we're on content here, I know you want to move around, but James and Marysol made some interesting points. All of that content around the Liberty games, the Liberty are great at it. I think that's another place that's exciting, is to figure out how to engage the fans around that game experience. But think also now about the opportunity for women to tell the sports and the opportunity for people to find out the stories about women. Before the Super Bowl, the week before the Super Bowl, there are 72 hours, or there were a year or so ago, of live NFL content in the week before the Super Bowl. There were more than 200 hours of content, general content, in the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. There wasn't a dog who belonged to a player whose name we didn't know, or the recipe to some grandmother's spaghetti sauce about every single player by the time we watch the Super Bowl. What does that do? It engages us, right? We root for people. We know the backstory. Women's sports doesn't have that opportunity. It doesn't have the shoulder programming. We don't get an hour of pre-programming before WNBA goes on the air, right? We don't see all that stuff because media rights are only 24 hours in the day. There are only so many hours that you can put sports on, and that real estate is extremely, extremely valuable. Right. So to Marysol's point, that I think the teams have figured out a very good way all the way around the game, right? As soon as you get to the arena, right before you get to the arena, the Instagram, social media, et cetera, to try to fight that battle that men's sports has been winning for a very, very long time.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, just on that, our group, sorry,
No,
just
no,
the
please.
numbers on that. Like our team at Wasserman, they found, I think in 2010, 4% of all traditional like media hours were focused on women's sports. That number actually went up to 11% a couple of years ago, which still is way too little of a number based off of, what the actual fandom of these sports are and what traditional, not just traditional, but also the shoulder programming you're talking about, Kathleen. And it's in a positive increase, but just like you look at the numbers of hours dedicated to women's sports, and it's significantly, it's the metric is kind of shockingly low.
And anybody who's listening, that's a student who wants to learn, Wasserman, Thayer Lavielle, who runs the collective at Wasserman, those guys put out crazy, great reports. So just Google those. They do a great job about the fan, about the athletes, about the whole state of women's sports. So it's great data.
Yeah, so I think this is actually a great segue into sustainability around women's sports. So we were talking about momentum, but momentum is one thing and sustainability is another. So you guys kind of touched on this, but just to go into it a little more, what strategies are proving most effective for turning this wave of excitement into long-term viability? So we don't see this kind of upwards trajectory and then we see it plateau. So are there examples from leagues or brands that you think are getting it right in this sense?
Well, I would, on the cautionary side, what's going on with the WNBA right now is an interesting thing to watch because with collective bargaining and the players trying to figure out what they're going to get paid and Kathy Engelbert trying to manage that. The NHL had somewhat of a similar situation and there was a bit of a lockout and the fans disappeared and it's hard to get them back. The WNBA and the fan loyalty, how fragile is it? Who knows, right? So I think that's just a difficult thing to manage in terms of keeping the fans engaged. That's just one particular just news item that I think is germane to your question, Isabella.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything on turning it's what you said? Do you think it's the media? Do you think it's tapping into social media and posting more and getting more of a background? Is it more of storytelling? Like, how do you create sustainability within women's sports to keep that interest?
I think as someone who's growing her own business in this space and someone who grew up in legacy media and is now navigating streaming and social and the ecosystem that is media, capital M, right? Like I'm a journalist, I'm in media, an influencer with 1 million subs on Substack is also in media. We're doing two kind of different things, like same church, different pew. To that end, I do think going back to this idea of experiences, I get invited, and I'm sure all of you do, and some of you host summits. And I could go to 7 summits, and that's just for Hispanic Heritage Month. And we all sort of descend on a place. And I'm consistently amazed at the brands will come and they'll have activations. And I go because I'm like, okay, I'm on this panel, or I want to see like who we talking to, if it's women's in sports. The fans come and it goes back to this idea of they feel like they are included. They feel like they are part of the conversation, whether or not they're driving the conversation or not. They feel like, oh my gosh, I kind of have a seat at the table. And doing that, it's easy for me. I'm born and bred in New York, and we're in major cities. It's that swath of the country where it's like, okay, who's talking to these people? And are they the athletes? And are they the fans? And how are they consuming the media, whether it's ESPN or a Substack or a YouTube or a TikTok? I think that experience, feeling like they have some sort of skin in the game, even if they don't, just this idea that they are being invited into something and the curtain is being pulled back. I think that is where we're going to see a lot of programming happen. I'm sure you guys have all been invited by a brand or a media company, and they're like, here's the panel, and here's, celebrity A, coupled with athlete A, and boy, we love that they put on their pants one leg at a time, and yay. And I think that's what we're seeing more of. I'm curious to see where that takes it, because there are only but so many summits and experiences that we can go to and that we can invite fans to. But I do think, again, the fans are driving the content. And to Kathleen's point, it's shoulder program. When I speak to young students, I'm like, listen, I'm not the X's and O's gal. As much as I would love to do that, I could not call Monday Night Football, but I could sure tell a good story about that you've never heard of, from a Mexican woman who's leading the charge on flag football right now. And those are equally important. They don't have to be hour-long documentaries. They could be little snackables that exist. And we can get into the attention span of a fan, but that's a story for a different day.
Yeah, I mean, I think on like just an extent, like the experience part, like you're absolutely correct. And my something that I am, in terms of longevity and sustainability of this, I am so loving what is going on in the NWSL and now the WNBA a little bit in terms of the infrastructure build. So purpose-built stadiums for women's teams specifically. I think what Kansas City Current did, I did a huge little I'm like a complete nerd on what the Longs have done in Kansas City in terms of what that stadium has done to basically be the epicenter of how they're building their media partnerships, the commercial partnerships going in, how the fans are getting engaged. And truly, like that's what it is. These fans who are going to these stadiums that are built for women's soccer teams and sports teams specifically, it's a completely revolutionary idea. Those fans are going there and being like, this is my home. Like I was on the ground. I was part of the start of this. I'm part of this movement. It's not just a genius thing for that, but it's also been incredibly successful for their commercialization and the money that they've brought in. I've written papers and studies on the Kansas City Current model because I find it incredibly fascinating. So I think more infrastructure ownership groups that want to invest in the actual nuts and bolts of what a women's sports team requires in a city is going to be a tremendous thing. I hope continues to happen with the leagues.
Yeah. So turning it more towards maybe the brands and the athletes, do you see that they're approaching partnerships in women's sports? Either it's the athlete approaching the brand or the brand approaching the athlete or team vice versa. Are they doing it in a different way than you see it happening with men's sports? And are we seeing more of an authentic value-driven partnership / is there any difference between men's and women's sports and these deals that are going on between brands?
I
I
think
mean, I loved, and I'm a little biased because I know the former CMO of Glossier, but I thought that was one of the first, going to a Liberty game and seeing that signage and getting handed a Glossier lip gloss. I was like, genius. Because Stewie will dunk on someone. She doesn't dunk, but you know what I mean. But then she'll turn and wipe her lips with a Glossier lip gloss on the bench, and I'm like, that very organic, seems incredibly natural. As someone who works as a woman in a male sport for the Mets, it's that we're a New Balance ballpark. We have it's copy paste. There's no, our shortstop, he's a New Balance guy. He does content for them. And it's very, very traditional. I think that the brands that have been more female focused have figured out a way to tap into that storytelling that feels very natural and organic.
I would bounce for me, right? Or bouncing off of Glossier, you've got Elf Cosmetics, Corey Marcasato, great CMO over there, Sephora as well, Xena, and there are a lot of brands, I think James mentioned it before, that you would not necessarily associate with sports that have an opportunity to show up in women's sports. Yeah. It's also, I mean, it's a pretty big brand, small brand. It's pretty good value for you. I mean, back to Thayer Lavielle. I'm a big fan of Thayer Lavielle, runs the collective at Wasserman. You can see all the data on women's sports. Female fans or fans of women's sports tend to be much more brand loyal. They want to root for a team and they want to support a brand that supports women's sports. There's a stickiness to it. I mean, I could go on and on about the data that's in regard to the female sports fan. So there's an opportunity there, back to data and money for brands to show up. And I think the teams are smart enough that really, certainly the Liberty are great. Other teams that are smart to figure out how to get them in there in a creative way that feels genuine, it feels authentic. As Marysol says, it's not just because you're slapping a logo on a helmet or a jersey, but they're figuring out a way to get that brand into the slipstream of the experience, right? Again, the opportunities are not necessarily there on national TV, right? Or TV and media. It's expensive, and media rights is a whole nother ballgame. Back to my only 24 hours in a day theory from earlier. So I think smart brands and smart CMOs, there's an opportunity there. And I think some of them are coming up with some really creative and interesting ways to show up.
Yeah, just to raise some examples. I mean, last March Madness, one of our girls did a deal with Kotex, and and talked
I
about.
loved it. But
And
it was brilliant.
never would I think I'd, be talking to Kotex
You
about.
don't see that at the Mets, Marysol. I don't see Kotex showing up at the Mets. I don't.
Somehow, me and the 5 other women that work for that organization.
Yeah.
Luckily, I am married, and I do know a little bit about, tampons and things like that. So it wasn't a topic that was totally uncomfortable. But this year we're talking to Ulta Beauty about activating college athletes as well. And so again, just to reiterate, just the number of categories that have opened up just because there's so many eyeballs on women's sports. Again, big reason why we're diving headfirst into the space, just because there is an increased amount of investment that doesn't even cannibalize, the investment on the men's side. I think it's interesting. I'm the shoe guy here. I do all of our basketball player shoe deals. I find it interesting that the top performing shoes these days on the basketball court on the men's side are actually the women's shoes. I think Sabrina and Aja have the top performing shoe right now for Nike. Those are not because, it's a women's shoe or whatever. It's a high performing shoe that it doesn't matter to the men. The women they've proven that they can obviously sell shoes. So I think that's one to just obviously continue to monitor. And yeah, it's again, it's awesome.
Well, James, I was going to say it took you a while to get to the explanation of the shoes on the shelf, because we all might have thought that you just wear a whole bunch of shoes
Just
to
a
work.
big sneakerhead.
So,
I love it.
yeah. But let me ask you, as in terms of agency, are you guys tell me a little bit how you're choosing the athletes that you represent? Is it important that they are brand ready? Are you pitching those athletes to brands? Are the brands coming to you? What's the state of the art in terms of matching a brand to an athlete, or is it still pretty much more team league focused than it is for individuals?
Yeah, look, obviously we're just starting on the women's side. A little bit of it is, hey, we got to just get started. We can't overthink, is this player ultra marketable? Is this player so there is a little bit of element of that, is just, we got her because she's gettable, which is kind of the practical side of things. Obviously, what we aim for are the best basketball players, and obviously to go with that, the most marketable. As far as matching matching athlete to brand certainly is we kind of rely on business logic a little bit more than solely just, hey, my girl likes to drink Gatorade, so I'm just gonna beat down Gatorade's door, right? It's a little bit more of a, hey, let's look at all the drink brands that are invested both in women's sports, but also if she's from Ohio State, what brands are regionally there, what brands, if they're not from there, are concentrating dollars there, right? And kind of come to a kind of logical reason why the brand should sponsor the athlete or should cast her in a commercial or a campaign or something like that. So yeah, it is a matchmaking process that you'd love to kind of fit the story in there as well, but at the same time there's usually the business logic wins out and all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely not a linear process in terms of selling athletes, and especially with women's athletes, it's like I would say it's definitely people who do it, you relate on a lot of the similar struggles and successes, but when you do get to that sale or that partnership, it is, in my opinion, I've represent Formula One athlete on one end of the spectrum, and then Jessica Campbell, the first woman to coach in the NHL, is another athlete. I represented the first woman to play Division I college baseball. So these very, very unique narratives. When you do get a partnership with an athlete like that, it is so fun because you've aligned this incredible story with, you know, one example with Jessica Campbell, the hockey player, we did a activation with L'Oreal, massive company, who would never think to get into the NHL. Like, you know, NHL of all the leagues is probably the least likely to bring in, you know, women dominant brands. And for the reason of that, like they're new to the whole space. Jessica was the way, I mean, she got up close and personal with the CMO, like the proximity and the sort of ability she had in shaping their activation was, especially with a company with the resources like they have, is incredible. So they are very worthwhile once you get there, and the opportunity, I think, as an agent or as, you know, someone selling these athletes, is you lean on that of you're new to getting into this space. My athlete is, you know, a figure in this space that will help you out. Like, let's all come together and shape this and do this in tandem, where I think that doesn't happen as frequently in male sports. The model's kind of been run, right? The systems are in place to kind of, you know, check the box, push the button and go. So in terms of partnerships, just because that's a lot of what I do, like I think that it's a very different feel between selling for men and selling for women.
I actually have a question for Hig and or James. Do you find that there is a bump in interest or opportunity after something like the World Cup, you know, the Women's World Cup, or after the Olympics, for example? Because it's always like, you know, as a mom, I know, oh my gosh, women's track, they came home, you know, and by the way, American women win the vast majority of medals for Team USA. Suddenly, everyone is putting their kid in whatever sport, you know, triumphed. And I wonder, for you guys as agents and working in these really well-established agents, if you see a bump in interest, or do you use that as an opportunity to parlay your clients to say, look, this is what we're doing, and all eyes are on the sport?
Yeah, so just to kind of peel back the curtain, when in 2018, when I first started at WME, we had represented Naomi Osaka for years up until that point, and you know, very little known player, and then 2018 US Open, she comes out of nowhere and beats the crap out of Serena. And us as the kind of athlete marketing group was just like, shit, we gotta, and that Monday it was you know, a quick meeting on, we gotta get on this now. And then everybody just frantically emailing as many brands and relationships as we possibly can. And yeah, it was crazy because her price points was tripled overnight. And it was just, you know, there was a bidding war between the credit card category for her shoe deal was up, and you know, it was the first ever Nike deal that allowed outside brand logos on the competitors, you know, because usually Nike takes the entire head to toe and doesn't allow for other logos. She had an Adidas deal that allowed for 2 other logos that we baked in. So it was just incredible. Like, it's one of the few times that I've ever seen that, you know, it's like the lights completely switch on.
Yeah.
You just go. I mean, talking about skiing, I mean, I was a huge Winter Olympics fan. I mean, like Eileen Gu's portfolio went from, you know, virtually nothing to just, she's everywhere, especially given the China backing as well. So yeah, it's especially the events that happen every 4 years. Like, it's wildfire.
So to move us forward, that was great on that topic. We're going to move into fan engagement and kind of the cultural background. So one thing that strikes me about women's sports, it's how engaged and passionate the fan base is. So what makes, for you guys, what do you see that makes sports fandom unique? And should leagues, teams, and athletes nurture this relationship, or they should, and how should they do that?
one of my contemporaries, they have become friends, and they were in their former lives collegiate athletes and marketers, and they started a company a couple of years ago called Drafted, and its focus is on Latina fandom, and it's very specific. And when they were going for their round of funding, everyone was like, this was in 2019, they were like, this is too niche, this is too niche, this is too niche. And 4 years later, they are the sweethearts, they are the darlings, because it's not niche. I think of myself as like having two strikes against me. I'm a woman and I'm a Latina, so I have to work so much harder. I don't consider it strikes, but you know what I mean, for the purpose of the conversation. And so they have really tapped into Latina fandom for all the sports. You find fans. They're doing an entire content series about hockey players and Latina hockey players, and how there is this incredible fandom for hockey players. I didn't think about hockey when I was growing up. I was like, that's cold. It's not for me. But they have figured out a way to, find the brands, connect them with the fans, connect them with the athletes, and create incredible storytelling that suddenly now people are like, oh, I didn't know that woman played hockey, and what is she doing, and where's she from, and can I follow that path? So that's I think that they for me are an exemplar of how to do it right. They weren't big and splashy. They got tons of no's for many years, and I think just they gradually built this thing and found, the audience found them. I think that's what it was. I think the audience was always there. It's just that no one had been talking to them. Drafted, search them up. Shameless plug. Yeah. And I have no vested interest in them. They're just friends.
Do you think that storytelling is the main thing that attracts fandom? I mean, there's a couple of things. There's the star player aspect. There's the storytelling behind these athletes. And then sometimes as well, it's rivalries between two teams or two players. What do you think drives it? Is it all of them? Is there ones that I'm missing?
Well, I'd say you're in the area of sports in general. Doesn't matter, women's or men's, does not matter. I mean, that's one of the reasons, the media rights and for live sports now are just astronomical. They're through the roof. Again, only so many hours, so many to play. You've got all these media outlets now that are in sports, like for the NFL. You've got Amazon, you've got the NFL, you've got the NFL in Europe, you've got
on Netflix, you have the All Women Sports Network.
It's all right. So we could all go on for an hour about why we love it. We grew up in it, the lessons that we learned on the pitch. Many of them translate into the C-suite for women. Something like 92% of women in the C-suite have played some kind of sport, organized sport at some point. It's a shared experience. It's all of the good stuff, right? Whether we're at home or we're in the stadium. So as I said before, yes, the stories are certainly great because they get you to root and they get you to even more connected to your team. Why Hig is following Kansas City, he's got a reason, right? That started with a passion, started with something that interested him. He's now invested, right? So the teams in the leagues are all around, I think, are great at that. And there's just more of it. And I think women's sports is, I think, not cautionary, but I think women's sports needs to continue to realize and focus that they are not an early version of men's sports. They're a different thing. They're a different animal. The athletes are different. They're who they are, how they carry themselves, their values, how they communicate, they have. The whole thing is different. So I don't think that women's sports, and there are plenty of smart people in women's sports that are being mindful of that, but they are not an early version of men's sports. And there are other opportunities that I hope that people that work in the business of women's sports continue to mine and continue to find and continue to be creative about.
Yeah, that's great. So last question before we get into Q&A. This is more, I'm going to go to our last question here, actually. So this is a question that I like to turn to, and it's really for the students, particularly NESCAC, and young professionals in the room. What's your advice to them? How can they position themselves in a way to contribute and to find their way into the sports business world? And how can they benefit from this rise of women's sports?
Well,
Like the
I'll go
$1 million answer.
No, I would just say again, it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, to me, put yourself around the smartest people you can find. If you want to work in sports or women's sports, get in someplace and learn, walk around and meet everybody and find out where your passion lies. You know, the quicker you find that out, the quicker you will get there. But ask a lot of questions, be curious, but just always figure out, just get yourself around the smartest people you can be around. And that, I guess, sports or any other industry. I don't think there's a magic to working in sports
No,
about everybody else.
I know, and we were just reporting today on the dismal state of affairs with this generation applying for jobs, and the first person that is not a person that sees your resume, right? It's an AI.
Yeah.
I feel for all of you. Truly, truly, I feel for all of you. But yes, good old-fashioned elbow grease. And I wish I had a super tactical answer for this. Align yourself with really smart people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I never imagined I would be working for the New York Mets. I grew up a Yankees fan. So know that your path, you're gonna zigzag. And sometimes when you zig, you find that you're really passionate about this one thing. So I would also say, in addition to aligning yourself to really smart people, be open to where your path is going to take you. And please rely on us. I'm so sorry that I never leaned on the Wesleyan Alumni Network as much as I should have. Part of me is just stubborn, but truly exploit it, all of it, the whole NESCAC. Truly.
I'd say our league is beautiful. Like when I try to explain it to people that live in Chicago that went to Big Ten school or whatever, they don't understand it. It's league wide. It's not just the Williams Alumni Network, but when you hear from, someone that went to Bates or someone who played football at Trinity, or I guess Hamilton's counted now. My inclination to respond and to connect, jumps up 90%, right? I don't think I'd be here without NESCAC alums answering my emails. And so I would say lean into that aspect of it, because I think the experience of going to such a small school in the middle of nowhere and playing sports that no one else cares about but yourself and the 15 guys around you, like, I think is really special. And I think everyone kind of, their mind goes back to just such a positive experience that they, of course, will at least answer to try to help you just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think just having transitioned from athlete to then working in the sports industry, which I thought would be a lot easier than it actually turned out to be. There's a difference, like the irony when you're an athlete, the coach tells you what to practice on. You have a sort of formula. This is when I get better. You're able to have those metrics, very understandable. But working in sports, there really is, it sounds so cliche, but there is not a playbook in terms of how that looks for you to get in. So don't get discouraged by it. Find out other ways to diversify your background, keep yourself busy, figure out maybe even what you don't want to do, because the way people are hiring into sports, especially at like large places I've worked at, is we're looking for diverse candidates, people coming from completely different backgrounds, different perspectives, different expertises, and plugging them into the sports world, because the sports world is continuing to globalize and modernize, and we need young people who have different experiences elsewhere to plug in. So just because you're not in sports right now or in the next 10 years doesn't mean there's not a route eventually.
Yeah, that's great. Before going into the Q&A section, I really just wanted to say thank you all for joining today. And this has been fantastic. So just conversationally wise and learning more. So turning it over, we already have one question. from Anais Gonzalez. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And they said, I apologize if this was addressed already, but if not, how has sports betting influenced your workload in regards to women's sports? Have you seen a large impact? If so, has it been positive or negative?
So sports betting just in general about women's sports and sports or sports?
Yeah,
Missed question.
From my vantage point, I guess I don't think there has been a huge effect, obviously, on the entire sports landscape. It's been pretty dramatic. I have not seen it ripple through the women's side yet, at least for me.
I think anecdotally, like sports betting, it's a really interesting topic that I've worked with athletes on, like personally being, tennis players, especially getting involved in people betting on them and then kind of getting, not there's been some adverse outcomes of all that. I've also worked with startup companies in the betting space that have been acquired by larger like FanDuels and things like that, which is truly about like equaling up and leveling up on the education of sports betting opportunities for women sports fans, because I think there is a sort of lag of the opportunity there. And it really is like a putting the systems in place for WNBA, NWSL, these new, smaller women's sports leagues that don't have betting regulations and sort of, I guess, the right crowd betting on them, the crowd that actually cares about them as people. So it's definitely a little bit behind, but a huge opportunity for those of you guys who are interested in betting and weaving that into women's sports, because there's a lot of solutions to be fixed.
Yeah, that was great. I don't see any other questions. Is there anything else that you guys want to discuss here, or any other things you want to leave the audience with? All right. Well, anyways, I just wanted to thank you guys for sharing your time, expertise, and passion with us today here on this call. I would love to have a follow-up, and if people can reach out via LinkedIn, we will connect them. And I just wanted to say thank you. This was a great turnout, and it's hard because I can't see anyone who's viewing. It would be a lot easier if we could see everyone, but thank you guys as well for joining and listening in. And please, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm sure that you guys are happy to connect, and
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
that would be the
I
last.
kind of put it out there now.
Yeah, as James said, yeah, feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to help.
Amazing.
100%.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Find us on
everyone.
LinkedIn.
Thanks, Isabella.
No,
Guys.
thank you guys.
Thank you,
Bye,
Isabella.
guys.
Bye.
Good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.